In this video, we'll look at deciding what voice you will choose for your draft. The term voice has two meanings in writing. After you've been writing for some time, you'll develop your own individual voice. Readers will be able to recognise your writing style when reading. This writer's voice comes through style, forms of expression, and many hard-to-define factors that make your writing voice your own, unique. You may already have your voice, or if you are starting out, you may draw on a pastiche of other writers whose work you enjoy. Slowly, over time, you'll develop your own unique voice. But here, in this early stage of getting down a first draft of a novel, we're not talking about that unique voice. We're talking about choosing a voice as part of your approach to this writing project. These choices will inform how you are going to tell your story. These are big decisions. Will you use present tense or past tense? From what point of view will you write? Will you write in third person or first? Big decisions, yes, but make them happily, without stress. Whatever we choose at this stage, anything can be changed in the long run. What point of view will be the best for our first draft, first person or third person? We'll look at the first person first. This is writing in the actual voice of the protagonist or another character observing and narrating the story. The writer enters the world of the fictional narrator and becomes her or him as we write. This way of writing uses the pronoun I frequently. But do be careful not to have too many I's. There are many ways to minimize the pronoun's use. Experiment. First person uses I, me, my, and mine, and we, us, and our, as long as the narrator is part of the collective phrase. The chosen character becomes the narrator of your narrative. The benefits of writing in the first person are an intimacy between your reader and your narrating character is formed. The reader is in there with you, travelling with you. The most common criticism by writers about using the first person is that it limits the world of your story to the point of view of the narrator. This can cause challenges when the bad guy is planning something that you don't want the protagonist to know just yet, but you want to let the reader know about it to build tension in the storyline. Write the first-person story through the eyes and ears and mind of the narrator, whether he or she be protagonist or an observing character. Writing in the third person is a different point of view. In this case, the author is the narrator. There are two common styles, intimate and omniscient. In the third person, point of view can change from character to character. Third person point of view can be intimate, told through the eyes and ears of the protagonist or other character. And as I just mentioned, the point of view can change from one character to another, protagonist, antagonist, or an observing character. Third person is probably the most common approach in genre fiction. Another third person point of view is termed omniscient. The author, in a way, sits on a cloud and looks down upon her or his created world. The characters play out their roles in the narrative, told from an almost godlike position, looking down from above. The writer, as with intimate third person, is the narrator, freely describing the story through the actions and behaviour of any of the characters. With the omniscient point of view, it is comparatively easy to assemble the narrative, one chapter following the action of one set of characters, the next chapter following another set of characters, following the protagonist, following the antagonist. Endless possibilities. While this is a convenient way to tell a story, it can lack intimacy. The reader doesn't necessarily feel close to the character with whom he or she is identifying. Much of literary fiction uses the omniscient point of view and can work extremely well. With beginning writers, this form can, at times, read as a little too simplistic. The second-person point of view is a valid way to tell a story. It is extremely rare in genre fiction and most novel writing. So what is the second person? The author is talking directly to the reader. The second person uses the pronouns you and your. In many ways, the writing of this course is in the second person point of view as I talk to you. Summarising, first person writing utilises the pronouns I, me, my, mine, we, us and our. Second person uses you and your. Third person writing uses the pronouns he and she, they and them. Now decisions have to be made in the tense in which we will write. A discussion of tense can be as confusing as following one noodle in a bowl of spaghetti. Present, past, future, present progressive tense, past progressive tense, future progressive, present perfect, past perfect, future perfect, present perfect progressive, past perfect progressive, future perfect progressive, all these tenses. Writing modern fiction is largely conversational and is best approached by following common English usage. The simple choice really is between present tense and past tense. Will we write in the now or in the past? Write in the present tense or the past tense? Present tense is good for action. Used well, it is effective to read. The reader is right there with the protagonist, galloping along on a path to action, love, mystery, or whatever your novel is about. Present tense is more difficult to maintain than the more commonly used past tense. Present tense is exciting to write. The narrative can race along through the action scene when the words go down onto the page very quickly. And then you, the writer, can run out of fuel. Present tense can be difficult to maintain through long-form writing, but works extraordinarily well when written with skill. The most common alternative is past tense. Past tense is when the narrator describes things that have happened, obviously, in the past. To explain tense, I'll use an example of a short paragraph of writing with a little help from my cyber friend Samantha, who apparently resides in my iPad. The first past tense.
The soundtrack of the morning was the crowing of the roosters and the call of the bread seller. Roosters were in every backyard of the small houses that faced earth-packed streets and cul-de-sacs across the side of the mountain. In the early light on Takakuma Point, the statue of Jesus faced the sunrise and embraced the world with outstretched arms.
In the present tense, that same paragraph would read,
The soundtrack of this morning is the crowing of the roosters and the call of the bread seller. Roosters are in every backyard of the small houses that face the earth-packed streets and cul-de-sacs across the side of the mountain. In the early light on Takakuma Point, the statue of Jesus faces the sunrise and embraces the world with outstretched arms.
The safest choice for a contemporary novel would be third person past tense. But hey, this is your story, and the approach is entirely your choice. Remember, at this first draft stage, voice in both person and tense can be flexible. Writing a first draft does not lock the writer into any point of view or tense. Halfway through a draft, I've made the decision to change from first person to third and back again from third person to first to best suit the changing needs of the narrative. This meant changing perhaps hundreds of pages. It can be a real pain and take a lot of time. Best advice at this time is getting a first draft down in a finite time and to decide on a tense and point of view, move forward and finish the draft. Plenty of time then to look how the story is working and, if required, make changes. As for now, don't falter. Changes can be made later. So, at last, it's time to write some words.